Hello, I'm John Muir Laws. I'm a scientist, explorer, and artist, and I want to share with you what gets me so excited about looking at this painting by Tony Foster. The subject is Machapuchare. It's a sacred mountain that no climber has ever summited. And you're looking at it from down in a base camp. And what I want you to think about here is the idea of contrasts. Contrasts are going to make any painting much more visually interesting and help the artist tell the story. Let's take a look at how some of these contrasts have been deliberately used by Tony Foster in this story right here. Let's take a look at the foreground. We have warm lime greens and oranges throughout this area. Orange down in here, red, brown in here. So these are what we call warm colors. So the yellow palette, the orange palette, these are what we refer to as warm colors. Cool colors are the blues and sort of deep blue greens that you're sort of seeing back here. So background blue, blue-green, bright lime green. Because there's a lot of warm colors in the foreground, you get a sense of depth in this picture. And one reason for that is that when we look out at real landscapes, things that are further away from us are shifted a little bit towards the blue part of the spectrum. There's scattered blue light in distant sky. The warm wavelengths of light, we can't see those warm colors back here in this mountain. There are warm colored plants all over this hill. But when you're looking out at a distant hill, you can't see those because you're looking through this blue filter. So there's intentional use of warm colors here, getting cooler back there. So that contrast gives you a sense of space. It also makes you feel that you're down in this little kind of warm, snug place. And we're down here and we're looking out at this wild, rugged landscape. So down here, I'm warm. Up here, I'm cold, but I'm safe where I am looking out at these features. And let's also look at the shapes. Rounded rocks, here covered with moss. So there's moss-covered soft edges all throughout here. And then as I look into the back, I've got these stark, hard edges, these contrasts of dark against the light snow. So that gives me more of this sense of I'm in this safe place, but looking out at this distant, forbidding landscape. And that helps carry this story of this sacred mountain, which the climbers have agreed not to ascend out of respect for the Hindu and Buddhist traditions in the area. Tony Foster is also deliberately using contrast in other ways to make parts of this drawing read more clearly. If I have a really dark object and I have another dark object next to it, they obscure each other. If I got a light object next to a light object, it's hard to see the forms. So a strategy that you're going to see is the idea of light against dark and dark against light. And let's look at how that plays out here in this landscape. Let's just sort of start up in here. I have this mountain with all of these beautiful details on it. As I come down and get to this middle ground slope right here with the blue greens in it, there's mist rising in the valley bottom right here. You can see that mist rising out of some of these edges right in here as well. So that mist being there, it is what Tony saw, but also it helps separate this plane from this one visually. I'm sure there were times when he was there where that mist cleared. But if he waits and sees that mist rise out of there, then, this is something I can include in my drawing that helps separate this space from this one. And similarly, that's going on a more subtle level. Things that are really close to me, I see greater contrast between the lightest lights and the darkest darks. As I look away at a distant hillside, the lightest lights and the darkest darks, the values are much closer together. Let's take a look at what is happening in these foreground trees here to help use contrast to help these pop out. So just take a look around in this part of the foliage here. And what you're going to see is that there are bright yellow greens, but there's also little patches of white paper that are sparkling through. So you get the feeling of there's light catching on these leaves. So sparkling leaves in the sunlight here, and when you drop back here, there's no sparkle. So there is a wash of paint over these areas, so the lightest lights, the white of the paper, is obscured by a thin wash of paint. So that makes this stuff sparkle. That greater contrast of the darkest dark, the lightest light being further apart in here, pulls this into the foreground, and as you go into the background, those values are close together. So there's another great example of sort of deliberate use of lights and darks in this case to pop this into the foreground. So for me, some of the choices that Tony Foster has used in this painting really help set the stage of this forbidding mountain that I cannot reach, and being safe here in this beautiful idyllic landscape. Look at the warmth again of these plants. Even the most, isn't it interesting that the most foreground plants that are right up here at the closest edge to you, really bright yellows and oranges. Again, that pulls this towards you, warms up the whole picture. You're in this safe place, but then we can look out at where we can never reach. That really gets me excited about this painting. As an explorer, as an artist, as an armchair philosopher, I find those sorts of messages that are embedded in a painting like this just bring it to a higher level.